Okay, we are back to Mishlei 25:3. There is a chance, not just a chance, there are meforshim who hold that this is connected to the previous pasuk. And since it's been a very long time, let's just quickly review the previous pasuk, which is Kvod Elokim Haster Davar, Uchvod Melachim Chakor Davar, which we translated as the honor of God or judges is to hide a matter, and the honor of kings is to investigate or is the searching out of a matter. Okay, so then we got ours. Shamaim larum va'aretz la'omek v'lev melachim ein cheker. Who would like to try translating that? Would you like to try translating? No one is stepping up. Shamaim larum va'aretz la'omek v'lev melachim ein cheker.
I could give it a try.
Oh, okay. I guess David was frozen for a second. It looks like you're still.
Yeah.
Oh, you're okay.
Am I here?
Yeah, okay. You're there. All right, go ahead, David.
Good. So the sky or the heavens? I don't know.
Sky's probably better. I don't like people translating it as the heavens. Stam, because even though it's accurate, I think nowadays when people say heaven or heavens, it has like heavenly connotations, but it means the sky, so that's fine.
Like to go up.
So that's interesting. I believe room is a noun.
Wasn't it height?
Height. Yeah, exactly. A noun, right?
Right.
Yeah. So how would you translate with the lamed?
2 height, 4 height?
Yeah, is 2 or 4 height? Yeah, go ahead, David.
And the land for depth.
For depth.
And the heart of kings, and there's no investigating into the heart of kings.
Yeah, there's no investigating the heart of kings. Okay, good. Okay, Metzudas ציון says la room is milashon harama v'gavhus, so it's raise upness and height. Okay, so I think height is a good translation here. Sadigon says, so Sadigon we actually have to translate here. Okay, Kamo shehashamayim betachlis harum, just as the sky is at the utmost height, utmost height, the haaretz betachlis haomek, and the earth is at the utmost depth. Kach machshavos hamalachim, so too the thoughts of kings, ein lahem tachlis v'sof, have no ultimate tachlis v'sof.
Isn't tachlis purpose?
Tachlis is purpose in modern Hebrew. I think I don't know in rabbinic Hebrew if that's. I just want to look at maybe I'll look at the Klein dictionary. Oh, hold on. Klein dictionary. Tachlis. I don't even think it's a biblical Hebrew term. That's why I'm looking at the Klein dictionary. Ends, completeness, aim, purpose. Does that tell us what PBH is? Post-biblical Hebrew, maybe? I'm not sure. Comes from the word kala, like to cease or to be complete. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think we translate it as purpose here, unless you never know, because Kafik is translating to modern Hebrew. So I'm not sure. So I'll say end, and I'll put purpose in question marks. Okay, Targum, Shemaya Ramin Va'ara Amika. So he just goes, the sky is high and the earth is deep. Okay, I think he's taking it as adjectives. V'liba demalche, and the heart of kings, lo mispite, cannot be, I looked this up, cannot be penetrated. Okay, so it is cheker, but it's like, to like, burrow in or whatever. Okay, then we've got art scroll. The heavens for height, the earth for depth, and the heart of kings cannot be fathomed. Okay, I like fathomed. Rav Hirsch, so Rav Hirsch ties this to the previous one. So here's how he translates both of them. This is an interesting translation. Oops. The glory of God is the mystery of his rule. That's Kvod Elokim Haster Davar. But the glory of kings is the unfolding of matters. I remember we thought that was weird last time. I don't know how he gets that from Chakor. And yet, as the skies are high and the earth is deep, so the heart of a king is unfathomable. I also don't know how he says a king. I mean, it just seems loose translation because it's kings, fine. And then Alter says the heavens for height and the earth for depth, but the heart of kings is beyond probing. Okay, that's another good one. And then he puts out this note here. He says, this line initiates the puzzle pattern that is especially prominent in the first verse, followed by its human referent or antithesis in the second verse. So this brought to mind the fact that Shlomo Melech in the beginning of Mishlei says, Lahavin mashal militza divrei chachamim v'chidosam, like they're the words of the chachamim, they're riddles. So I think one of the things we're going to see in chapter 25 or 25 and on is a lot of like riddle like pesukim, like just in through analogies and stuff. So okay, I'm going to go ahead and move all of these upstairs. Actually, I'm going to move them. Let's put it this way. Let's go like this, and we'll keep this 25.2 in mind, but just not focus prominently on it. Okay, what are the questions here? Yeah.
What about the Lev Malachim is not subject to investigation?
Yeah, what is it about the Lev Malachim that is not subject to Hakira? Yeah. You know what's funny? If we read this together with the first one, remember we weren't sure if it meant that the glory of kings is that they investigate things or that they are investigated. So I wonder if it would have changed. I forgot how we learned it, but I wonder if it would have changed our analysis if we had this pasuk, because this pasuk is saying there is one aspect of kings that cannot be investigated, or fully investigated, which is their heart. So I don't know, I just wanted to say that. Yeah.
Is it possible to read this one? And I don't like this reading, but Lev Malachim ein cheker as the heart of a king doesn't investigate.
I don't think so. I'll ask that as a question. Is it possible to understand the second half as
it's not ubelieve, so I don't think it's even a question.
Right, and the heart of kings. Yeah, it's not mashma that it cannot engage in cheker. Yeah, right. Yeah. That the format I think seems to suggest against it. Yeah, Isaac.
Yeah. So this is less of a question than a comment, but I think it seems mashma to me that it is related to the previous pasuk because it uses the same word of cheker and also about mullah.
Right. Correct. Yeah.
What is the relationship to the previous pasuk?
Yeah. What is the relationship to the previous pasuk? Yeah.
What are the relationship between the two halves?
Yeah. What is the relationship? Oops, sorry. What is the relationship between the two halves? Yeah, David.
What does leave mean in this context?
Yeah. What does leave mean in this context? Yeah, Ezra.
What's shot with the first half?
Yeah, right. Yeah. What is the first half saying? Right. I guess like Shemaim and Aretz, I assume means Shemaim and Aretz, but like what is the like propositionally, I guess, right? Propositionally, what does la rum and la omek mean? And what is the entire clause saying? What is the entire clause saying? Yeah, actually, I'll just put it like that. Yeah, Ezra.
What's the subject?
Yeah. What is the subject of this pasuk? Yeah, I mean, it seems to be the Lev Malachim, but we should probably be able to get more specific than that. Yeah, Isaiah?
But what do we mean by ain? Like, ain in what sense?
By ain, you said?
Yeah.
Is that different? Actually, yeah, I guess we'll ask, what does ain cheker mean? And like, I guess the question is like, and to what extent, right? Because it's not, I don't think it's saying you, like, ligdulaso ein cheker, those who interpret that as the gedula of Hashem is his essence. We're not saying that here. We're not saying you can't get any knowledge about the Lev Malachim. So like, does it mean there's a limit, and like, what's the cause of that? Which is, I guess, is the next question. Yeah, Isaiah?
Yeah, also, I mean, this might be assuming some sort of interpretation, but like, isn't the king just a person? Like, why wouldn't Why
Right.
does Leib not be subject to this?
Yeah. Isn't a king just a person? Why, why wouldn't his slave be subject to the same, kind or degree of cheker as any other person? Now, we have had pesukim, I don't know, recently, but pesukim about, hold on, isn't, there's pasuk that people like quoting about the heart of man and water and reflection, something like that. I don't know. I feel like there are pesukim about how you can't understand. Say again?
No,
No, I'm talking about regular people, not kings. Yeah. Right. So in other words, like, I guess, so the reason why I'm bringing it up is, and if this is true about other people, what is the difference? Yeah. Okay. Is that it? I mean, what's the practical application, right? What is the practical application? And then who is the intended audience? So I think for the last one, we were not sure whether the intended audience is the king or people who are in the presence of the king. Here, it seems to be very hard on the surface to say the audience is the king, right? Unless it's talking about king to another king. But yeah. Can you say something else?
No, those were the
Okay.
questions.
Okay, I feel like those are the main questions. Oh, actually, one other question is, I guess, is there any special significance to the fact that it says malachim rather than melech? And the only reason I'm asking that is, like, there's no shot problem with it saying malachim, but usually pesukim that involve a melech can double as being about Hashem. Whereas if it is, so in other words, like, is he specifically ruling out? See, it would on the surface be good if this said melech, and then you could apply it to Hashem and have some idea about Hashem. So it's like, I guess, what prompted him to pluralize melech when many Mishlei pesukim, oh, actually another one also in Mishlei, use melech in the derech nister to refer to Hashem or the Yetzer Hara, right? That's another big one. Like according to the Meiri. Yeah, David?
I'm just not clear. Are we understanding Ein Chaker to be that it's not possible to investigate, or that it's not fitting to investigate?
Oh, that's a good question also. Right. Does this mean not possible to investigate or not fitting to investigate? So, if you're talking about the previous pasuk, it sounds like it's more not fitting, right? Because it's saying what is proper, for the, kavod of Elohim it's proper to conceal, and the kavod of Malachim is proper to investigate. And it would also make a good pairing, saying, like, you should investigate the kavod Malachim, but not the Lev Malachim, whatever that means.
And then also following the first half of this pasuk, it sounds like the Shemaim has its place, and like it sounds like it's fitting for the Shemaim that it's in the sky, like that it's up there, fitting for the ground that it's down there, and then like fitting that you don't look into Lev Malachim.
Right, yeah. Right. Yeah, I guess, meaning that's an easier interpretation than saying it cannot be, like saying it cannot be something, because it is up and the earth is down. Yeah, Isaiah?
I think it's I feel like the easier reading is that the skies, like, they have height, like it's unreachable. The land has depth that's unreachable,
right?
And the Malachim, their hearts are unreachable.
Right. Yeah, I think you could take it that way also, and then you could say basically that the implication is the Ein Cheker really kind of goes on all three elements, even though grammatically it's going on the second one. But the implication is, like, I think we had a translation that said that, like Sadigan, right? Just as no, that's not true. Do we have anyone like this? No, but you kind of just say, like, just as the heavens are beyond probing for height and the earth is beyond probing for depth, the heart of kings is beyond probing, something like that. Okay, so it seems like we do have a clean split about two different directions to go about whether it is I think that question from David like really opens it up. Is it not fitting or is it not possible? So that's one like crossroads here. Yeah. All right. I think we're ready to think about it, right? Isaac?
Yeah. So I'm gonna take that it's not possible.
Okay.
And I think Havmina is that it is possible. I think this applies to anyone who's to any person who's in a position of like thinking about the motivations of anyone who's in a position of leadership.
Okay.
That the king has a like bird's eye view perspective of the whole system, and he's making decisions based on all of the factors in that system.
Yeah.
But you, who's seeing the king's decisions, you overweight the factors that you know, and you don't take into consideration the factors that you don't know.
Right.
But then you still think that you have come to a conclusion about why they made the decisions that they did, but you really just ultimately don't know.
Yeah. So I think that's a good shot. So when you are trying to fathom his decisions, you're limited by your own very small perspective. So it's impossible to even evaluate. Yeah. Just as a side rant or example, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I think one of the many reasons why I think that a lot of people who are involved in following politics are wasting their time. Not in terms of like who you should vote for, but let's say like when you see a government make a big decision about going to war or about like, some major thing, and then people weigh in with the sense of certainty as though they have all the facts. They never qualify it by saying like, I mean, actually, I shouldn't say that. At some points in the 2 years of war post October 7th, when Israel made certain moves, at some points I saw people verbally, like explicitly say, we don't have all the facts, but most people never say that, and like, I just think that is a, in a world of Shlomo Melech's time, maybe the average person would have more facts or not more facts, but like there'd be a narrower gap, between like, let's say, for example, a king might send out a spy into enemy territory and have like some secret information, but it's not like we had hackers who are able to like convey data in real time, from far off places, and maybe it was. So the only point I'm making is like if this was true then, Kal V'chomer now, when the sheer volume of information is so much more. So it's just like, I don't know, it's just foolish to think that they can, that you can see things the way the king is seeing it. Yeah.
I think to just prove Isaac's idea that it's possible, not that it's fitting, is that the Shemayim and Aretz are both fitting to investigate, even though it's not impossible. Right.
Yeah, I think that's good. So this is a support, which is that it's not talking about whether these things are fitting to investigate, since the Shemayim and Aretz, Shamayim, the Aretz are. It's, this indicates that it's talking about how feasible it is. Yeah, Moshe?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking similar to Isaac, but I wanted to fit it into the pesukim.
Yeah.
The first half of the pasuk was speaking about observable phenomenon that you would say you could measure, meaning if you could see the sky, you'd say, well, we could just take a big yardstick and go up there, or you can look at the ground and say, the ground's right here. It shouldn't be hard to figure out. Right. But even those where it's plainly obvious that that's an illusion and you can't actually measure the sky and the ground, that should be the same. Okay,
that's good. That's a good nuance, right? So in other words, like superficially, someone might think, what do you mean you can't investigate the height of heaven, of the sky, or the depth of the earth? Just use a yardstick, right? But we quickly realize that it's not so simple. That same realization should carry over to the kings, and we should realize that that it's just as obvious. All right, that's a great shot. Okay. Oh yeah, Isaiah.
Isn't this like at least somewhat true for any person that you don't really have a concept of like what's going on from their perspective, and you can't really know like how they're making the decisions that they're making.
Yeah, so I think I would one thing I would change in Isaac's thing is I wouldn't use the word motivations. I know what Isaac means, but I'll just clarify then. Motivations in the sense of all the factors they're taking into account. So in terms of like the psyche of a person, then yeah, there's a lot of hidden stuff. And in terms of the thoughts, then there's a chance that there are things that are hidden. But like if you're discussing stuff with a business partner, let's say, right, or a spouse, or like, just someone who you're interacting with in a normal way, like, and you're talking about making a decision, you can pretty easily tell, are we working with the same facts? With the king, you can't even tell that you're working with the same facts, and because you can't tell that you have all the facts, the weighing of those facts will be wildly different and could be wildly, divergent from how you're seeing things. Whereas let's say like business partners, they're using they have the same facts, they have the same goals, and like their weight is the same. And the only disagreement is going to be like in how to implement things or like what the plan is, So the answer to your question is like, to an extent, it can be true of other people, but there's like a qualitative difference with kings, just because the average person has no access to what the king's perspective is. See, this would be really good about God, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next shot. Anyone have another approach?
With God, you're like actually completely limited. You can't know anything. With like
right.
kings, like you can at least try, and like there's at least an illusion that you can.
Right. That's true. That is true. I'm still just wondering why, it seems like in the economy of Mashal, then he usually tries to write it in a way that can double. So it's just like bothering me why he's like ruling that out. I mean, I hear your answer is kind of addressing that, but all right, anyone else? By the way, lave can mean motive, can mean like ratzon, so I think that's but mind, heart, I think this lends itself to different possibilities. Guys, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the idea I had was very similar. And maybe this is the addendum that you just made a minute ago, but like I was thinking of it as like the king. The king is dealing with just like a totally like different number of facts than a normal person is dealing with. Like a normal person, you can understand like the scale of their life because it's similar to the scale of your life. Like they are involved in like a certain number of things, and so like you have the concept of like what that is, and so you can kind of, when you think about how they're making their decisions, like you can kind of understand where they're coming from. But a king is just involved in the scale of like dealing with the entire country and looking at all of its factors, and therefore like you can't try to when you see him make a decision, you can't try to understand like where did that decision come from, because it might have come from some factor that you have like no concept of like existing.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Another example of this, even though, well, okay, actually I can give a raya for this, is we mentioned, I think recently, that we tend to think of king as a stand-in for leader. But we have to remember that kings were also judges back then. Right. So actually maybe this is a separate shot, is I guess like addendum is this is also true for kings in the capacity of judges, and the example that I wanted to give, I wrote about this as what I'm thinking about this morning post, that I heard Barry Weiss's interview with Amy Coney Barrett, and one of the points, Supreme Court justice, one of the points that she made was that when people look at the Supreme Court dealing with, let's say, a case about executive power, right? Like the reach of executive power, which everyone has opinions about now. She said that they will assume that the Supreme Court is evaluating this through a political lens, and they're trying to like take power away from Trump, or they're trying to like help him, But she said, like, no, when we deal with something like executive power, we have to make a ruling that is going to be with an eye towards all future presidents and all past presidents, so it's not even about the particular. It's like we are looking about the stability and viability of the system going forward, and then in light of constitutional law. So like that's just another example of how people will be like, well, I like Trump having this power, or I don't. So the judges must be using that same criterion. But no, they're looking at the law, they're looking at the future, they're looking at like a much, much, much bigger picture. So I think that it fits there also. Same thing with pesukim, by the way, right? Is like, I think people get upset when they, let's say like you have, there's a great quotation from Rav Lichtenstein that I always forget what it is, but it's something like, we do believe in change in Orthodox Judaism, but that change has to be very, very, very slow, something like that, And so you look at the left-wing progressive spectrum of Orthodox Jews and Orthodox, rabbis, and they are very quick to make changes based on present factors. And one of the mistakes in that way of thinking is that it does not factor in long-term stability, not just in terms of that particular change, but making this a norm of like quickly making changes based on what's fashionable right now, And so I think when people on the left wing see rabbis make decisions which are weighing in halachic factors and societal factors, they're often quick to criticize because they don't put themselves in the perspective of someone who knows all of halacha, because they don't know all of halacha, and who's looking at the viability of the halachic system going forward. Like let's say an example of this is, there are a lot of articles on like the origin of mechitza, and how, I forgot if I asked this recently, but do you know why the first Reform shul did away with mechitza? If you had to guess.
So that the equality? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I think most people assume, right? Something about egalitarianism, equality, or family. Whatever. No, it was a big Reform shul, I forgot where it was, had bought a church, to renovate into, or not to renovate, to like designate as a temple, and the architecture didn't lend itself to mechitza, so they're like, oh, it's just easier to not have it, Like it was not ideological, And then also, if you look into the halachos of mechitza, it's not so clear that it's as important as historically people made it out to be, and it's not even, the parameters are not even clear, but it became a battleground issue. And the reason why it became a battleground issue is because the powers that be, in terms of the Gedolim and the poskim at the time, saw this was going to be an issue of contention that would affect the mingling, no pun intended, of Reform and Orthodox, and like, so like they took a stance, and people view that as like blowing things out of proportion. So again, it's just like, I think when people look at poskim, they need to realize that their own limited perspective, based on their knowledge of halacha and their knowledge of how, the history of how halachic decisions ripple through the ages, like, is not the same as posek. Yeah. Okay. Shall we? Oh, and actually that fits in because I think a lot of pesukim as well, that deal with malachim, there's some memra of Chazal that compares Talmid Chachamim to malachim. So I think there are some meforshim who will take that approach. Okay, let's look at the meforshim. I forgot to open my document, Mishlei 25 TC. Okay, so starting off with Metzudas David. Yeah, Isaac?
I have an example of a decision that by a leader that might be helpful to
sure. Your audio is a little sketchy. I don't know if that's on your end,
okay.
But
I'll try to speak up a little more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
About 6 months ago, the CEO of my company announced that because of AI affecting a lot of aspects of the business, because it's like publishing and education, that they were going to be putting raises and promotions and hiring on hold for 6 months.
Okay.
Which obviously was unpopular. But they said that they're still going to be doing the annual bonuses.
Okay.
So when we were talking about it in our team meeting, what do you say?
So contradiction.
Yeah. Well, so someone said that it's because, for like executive people, most of their pay is in bonuses. But for for most people, what they care about is the raises and promotions. You see that like they just made the decision that was best for them selfishly.
Right. And
like,
in reality,
it could be that that's why they decided it, but it also could be that they didn't want to increase their fixed costs. That raises and promotions are expensive long term. Whereas bonuses, they might have already allocated money, might have something to do with the way accounting works, with shareholders. Like there's so many different factors. That,
correct. That's a good example. I also wanted to add here that I think if you look into your own life where you made similar assumptions about the decisions made from leaders, and then you find out why they made those decisions, and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't know about that. I feel like that emotion is the emotion that the Kamash Milan in the pasuk wants you to have. Like there could be something that if you found out, you'd be like, oh yeah, I had no idea, So yeah. What's the example here? Just give me 1 second. This may be a relevant example. Okay, this is not really a relevant example of the particular pasuk, okay? But all right, I just want an excuse to say the example. Never mind. Okay, all right. Metzudas David. Ein cheker. Ratzlamar. Elu shloshes hadavarim domim zelazeh. So that is like we were saying, like Ezra was saying, or like Moshe, one of you was saying. No, but saying like you should read it as the ein cheker goes on all three, right? So these three things are similar to one another. It's impossible to know the height of the heaven, the depth of the earth, and the width of the heart of the king. Many judgments come before him. Oh, that's interesting. Many things come before him, and he needs to give attention to all of them. All right, so that's interesting.
I was thinking, like, is there a third dimension that that the leave is like, implicitly being measured as?
Yeah. Okay. So what's his idea there?
That it's just a third of these categories, and the same way you have height and depth, you also have width. And and like what the leave does that's so undiscernible is that it's keeping in focus so many different in Yonim.
Yeah. So I think I think this is different than the way that we tend to use. I know Rachav Lev is a strange term, I think my understanding of Rachav Lev is heavily influenced by the Rambam, or my reading of the Rambam. Maybe this is also subject to debate, but when he's talking about Maaseh Merkava and Maaseh Breshis and Davar Gadol and Davar Katan, he says that so Ani Omer Shein Roy Hital Bapardes Ela Mishnis Mala Kreso Lechem Basra. This is YUTorah at the end of chapter 4. So it's only fitting for someone to stroll in the orchard if someone who's filled his belly with meat and with bread and meat. V'lechem Basar Zehu Leda Bir Ha'asar V'Muter V'Kiyotz Ben Mishar HaMitzvos. That's knowing the prohibited and permissible and other things from other mitzvahs. So halacha. Even though the Chachamim call this a small matter, they said Maaseh Merkava, metaphysics is a big davar, and the arguments of Abai and Rava are a small davar. Nevertheless, it's proper to precede Maaseh Merkava with halacha. Because they settle a person's mind first. Because they are the great good that God bestowed to settle this world in order to inherit Olam Haba. And it's possible for everyone to know them. Gadol v'katon, ish v'isha, bal lev rachav u'bal lev katzar. It's possible for everyone to know them, great and small, man and woman. So I understand this to be like a very abstract thinker or a very narrow or attached to particulars thinker, So, but it sounds like Metzudas David is referring to this as i.e., you know, we would say bandwidth, right? Bandwidth of the king's, you know, attention that he can give, right? There are many things that come before the king, and the way he makes decisions about how to make decisions is different from someone who has far fewer, you know, urgent items to consider, right? So like, this is something that I've noticed in my, you know, my head of school was Mrs. Eisenman for Shahavit for 10 years, and Shahavit was a girls' school, high school. Now she's the head of Nija, and Nija is K through 12. Okay, so I just noticed, like, I got used to being able to like talk to her about anything that needs to be talked about whenever I wanted to, or like very rapid replies to emails, or, you know, a much more hands-on type thing. But like, when you're dealing with a much, much larger school, and it's the only school that services the community, you know, there are different priorities, and I just had to like come to terms with that, you know, like it's a different set. Yeah.
So is that like what the intended audience would be, like someone who interacts with the melech?
Sounds like it. Right. Right. It has like certain demands, you know. Similar thing. Again, I'm not saying that I'm you know, in a position of melech here or whatever, but like, I feel like you know, certain times people will text me either Q&A questions or like requests for like, you know, to meet or whatever, and they forget that I teach here. I have, you know, 30 students at Nija. I have my women's shiurim. I have my art. You know, like there's a lot more going on that my burners are often filled, or not filled, whatever, stuff on the burners, you know, that like that they're just not considering, because in their world, like say in Nija students' world, I'm just a teacher at Nija, you know, and like I'm their teacher, like, so like, why can't I write their letter of recommendation today, you know? So like that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. I think that's good shot. Okay, let's do still morning Rabbeinu Yonah. The fact there's no Rabbeinu Yonah on, you know, on these pesukim. Let's do the I want to say the Meiri for tomorrow, because that's probably longer. Who should we do? Let's do Ralbag, which I think I included at the end of your packet. Yeah. Ralbag. Okay, Shemayim. Hine hama'ala v'hamata. Aval pi she'inam nigdarim mitzad teva hakav hayashar shitzuyur bo hatosefes b'shnei tzadav. Okay, I don't know even how to read this. Okay, even though high and low, even though they are not defined by the nature of the, I think this is an astronomical term, the kav hayashar. You know,
I thought it was like a yardstick, like.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Let's see if we can get it from context. Existence constantly limits them. V'shem hashamayim hama'ala asher b'tachlis u'mirkas haaretz. Okay, u'mirkas haaretz shem hamata asher b'tachlis. I think it's yeah. So I think what he's saying, this is the gist I'm getting, but we'll see if it plays out, is Shemayim is not talking about the literal sky. Shemayim is just a stand-in for the utmost level of height, and Aretz is a stand-in for like the center of the earth. Okay, Asher b'tachlis v'amnam leiv malachim v'hashkafasam b'mesh yitztarhu sheistaklu bo b'hanyanim habayim lifneim. So similar to the Metzudas David, the heart of kings and their not hashkafa the way we say hashkafa, but like what they're looking at in what they need to examine in things that come before them. Hula in Kates, it's without number, without end. Ki yischalfu hanosim v'yischalfu ha'inyanim b'min ha'echad mihadvarim, because the subjects vary, the subjects and the matters vary in kind. B'min ha'echad mihadvarim, I don't know what it means. B'min ha'echad mihadvarim v'yischadchu mizeh inyanim rabim, and that leads to a multiplication of new things. Lane Kates infinitely. B'min ha'echad. Okay, okay. I don't know. I did not follow all the details, but it sounds like it's the same general approach as the Metzudas David. So I'll have to take a look at this before tomorrow and see if there's anything we can get from that. Okay, let's look at the Malbim is also going to be longer. I'm just looking for short version. Let's look at one of the Ibn Ezra's. Let's look at Ibn Ezra Ksav Yad. Shemaim Vatam. The meaning is Kumo Hashemayim. Just as the heavens, which are very high and they're standing in a very high place, and you can't know their height. And the earth is a depth and you cannot know it. You cannot know and investigate their seichel and their das. Now, you could just plug in the ideas that we said, but I don't know. The emphasis on seichel and das seems to be taking a stance on leiv, and this is problematic because, like we said, the king is just a human being. Right. So it doesn't mean you can't be choker their seichel and their das. And he's also emphasizing the extremity of it, right? Like it's so high up that you can't know it, and the earth is so deep that you can't know it. So the king's heart is so what that you can't. Sorry, the king's intellect is so what that you can't know it. Like, in other words, it does not quite seem to fit into Isaac's pshat, I don't think, because Isaac's pshat is there are factors that you don't know.
I mean, there's just seems to be a distance from the Metzias that you just practically don't know everything as a person, so you can't know.
That's interesting. That is interesting. Yeah. Yeah, see, it's funny because I know we don't hold this, but like in many other societies where they like deify their kings, this would be a very useful proverb, right? Like don't think that the king is the same type of person as we are. And, honestly, like I think there are people in, Judaism today who like, let's say, like, I'm sure there are Hasidic sects that they would say this about their Rebbe, like you just, it's a completely different, like, species almost, but we don't hold that. So okay, let's look at another. Let's just browse and then we'll come back to these tomorrow. Let's look at the Sefer Chukah, but we'll start from the previous pasuk. This is the Chukah is the Radak's father. Oh, that's actually longer. All right, so let's not do that one yet because he has. Oh, that's very long. That's longer than he usually has. Who else could we do in this 2 minutes that we have? Rashi. In Chikr. Yeah.
Sorry, I had an idea. I just had to go from
Sure.
Okay, so I apologize if this was anything I was said before. Insofar as the possible read of it's not fitting to look into the hearts of kings.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if this could be like addressed to the people that are surrounding a person who's in a position of leadership. And to say that there are a lot of like high highs and low lows when you're in such a big position, and it's important to know when you're interacting with them. I would say that like emotionally, there's a lot of these like ups and downs that this person is both having to hide because of the position that they have to make these big decisions, but also just internally, there's probably a lot of turmoil. And so insofar as your interactions with this person, don't think that you actually know really what's going on within them. Interesting. Okay, when you interact with them, don't think you really know what's going on with them. So you're taking leiv as emotions, right? Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting read. Okay, so that's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, I gotta say from my my brief reading of like presidential biographies, like I don't know, one of my favorite presidents is Truman, and like the weight of becoming president after into the fourth term of FDR, and then dealing with the war, and then dealing with the bomb, and when you read his like his what do you call it, his accounts, like his journals and stuff like that, yeah, I mean, that's you can make assumptions from the outside, but you got to remember the weight of the presidency. Yeah.
So is it saying that the emotions are so up and down that there's vast as like the head?
Yeah, I think that's what David is saying. And also just like you could also say the unreachable shot of like you don't know what it's like to be in a state like this. Another good example is again, I highly recommend the first couple seasons of The Crown. But like, it really does a good job of depicting the weight of the crown, and how like, and that was one of the struggles, is that, Elizabeth went from being just an ordinary royal and having all of her relationships with her husband and her sister and all this other stuff. But then once she became queen and had to make these decisions, like, they did not do well with the adjustment, because they were trying to relate to her as a normal human being, but she had such weight on her shoulders from all these responsibilities. Okay, this is a good place to stop. So tomorrow I'll have time to look into this. We got to get into the new routine, which is that I forgot, these pesukim are shorter and are going to be more. We're going to get them quicker, and also we're going to now go back to Thursdays where I have to stop after like 30 minutes. So I'll try to find meforshim ahead of time for Wednesdays, like I usually do for Thursdays. Okay, see you tomorrow. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.